I had a question. I had a question. Thank you for answering some of the questions I had in my head. But I think the fundamental question is, should some of these civil rights statutes be implemented local, city by city, or should the state government get involved in implementing some kind of framework? We talked about regulatory framework, statutes, and the Public Utilities Commission, giving them some role to implement the accommodations requirements that are in the federal law, and we have state laws as well. Do you think that the void should be filled by some kind of regulatory framework developed at a state level?
Well, we would be delighted to see the state, if it wished to, do a dramatic ramp up in regulation. Somebody needs to. It's hard to see how that would happen, but it's conceivable. Yeah. It would have to be very different from what's happening today. If that's not going to happen, we would just as soon, our hope is that TNCs are regulated exactly the same, as strictly as taxis are today and other similar entities to taxis.
Okay.
We don't want to see taxi regulations go down to match TNCs. We want to see TNCs regulations ramp up to equal taxis. So either the state has to match, but wouldn't it be easier if the city did it, because then they could just apply the same rules to all the entities? I realize each city is a struggle, and that's been described, and that's a problem that I acknowledge. So I don't know, we have to have one or the other, but we have to do something because the current system isn't working.
Thank you. We'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to apologize for missing Annette's presentation, because I just want to say I've known her for a long time, and she's a national leader on these issues. So I apologize.
Well, this is a recorded hearing, so you can
I will. I can't be in two places at once.
You can rewind and hear it again. Please come forward and state your name.
My name is Marco Anderson. I'm a senior regional planner with the Southern California Association of Governments. We're the metropolitan planning organization for all of Southern California, except for San Diego. As representing an MPO, I could say take as much time as you need on the transportation funding bill. We understand. I did want to come up. We are, as an MPO, we're a little unique. We're the largest MPO in the country, 38,000 square miles, 19 million residents now, and we have an incredibly diverse region ranging from the ultra-dense downtown Los Angeles to the rural, suburban, exurban, what we are starting to call first-generation suburb areas that are more compact than you think of with traditional suburbia and an older style street grid, but still very predominantly reliant on single occupancy vehicles. And so wanted to share a little bit, not get too much into the technical subject matter of how the different modes are regulated, but our experience in planning the transportation system as a whole out 25 years in the future. And just very quickly, our current draft regional transportation plan and sustainable community strategy is released. The comment period just ended. One of the directions we had from our board and from our executive director was to make sure that we grapple with what we are calling mobility innovations. And we moved away from the term new technology, because a lot of these are not new technology. They're existing modes that have been enabled by some other piece of technology. So
please wrap up your comments.
Oh yeah, we have been very encouraged by our work with the shared mobility service providers, and we'd like to see that moving forward. We have, as was mentioned, been receiving data from Lyft. The one thing I will say, though, in wrapping up, is that outside of Boston and New York, no metropolitan planning organization in the country ever models taxi mode as a mode. It's simply taken as a very small share of trips, because it doesn't feature into your mode choices when you get up in the morning.
Okay.
So in that regard, we're very encouraged by some of the data that's showing up, and we'd like to welcome the CPUC to require more data sharing from these organizations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Weso, Chairman Bell. My name is Mark Gruberg. I'm a member of the executive board of the San Francisco Taxi Workers Alliance. And Just for starters, I imagine that you were astonished as I was that a company providing transportation to the public under a state-issued permit won't tell the legislature how many drivers they have, and the regulatory agency won't ask them. Something is vastly wrong here. Taxis are an essential public service. We don't cherry-pick riders. We don't skim the cream. We don't require smartphones, credit cards, bank accounts. We don't jack up prices when it's convenient to do so. We take all comers. We have to be there. If we fail, public transportation fails. We need a level playing field. Different sets of regulations set by different levels of government for essentially the same transportation provided to the same public in the same way makes no sense whatsoever. What we would suggest is that there be a set of state regulations devoted to safety that would apply to all transportation for hire across the board, and that additional authority be given to localities to set their own regulations for their own vital interests, such as the environment, such as the well-being of the workers in those places. We would also, may I just make one more sentence?
One sentence.
Okay. We would ask that the CPUC's authority be transferred to another agency. They're not doing the job.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eli Love, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Cal Innovates. The realities of work have changed in California and across the U.S. for the better, which has created new opportunities, income streams, and control over people's work lives and schedules. Powerful new platforms are empowering thousands of low and middle income individuals to become the CEOs of their own enterprises. This personal enterprise economy is opening new worlds of opportunity in global markets that were previously the domain of only the companies with the resources and capacity to reach those markets. Since the CPUC took on the role of lead negotiator, this issue has been discussed ad nauseum while consumers have spoken clearly and loudly that they want greater access to rideshare options. While it is important to have a discussion about how to effectively regulate this nascent ecosystem without killing it, it is equally important that we acknowledge that it is already highly regulated. Much like Americans have chosen next-gen smartphones over antiquated landlines, they are also choosing 21st century transportation options both as a way to get around and a way to take advantage of the entrepreneurial opportunities that exist today. A goal for the legislature should be to pave the way for economic advancement and opportunity that is undoubtedly supported by consumer and entrepreneurial demand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I represent medallion holders in San Francisco, but I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about, I'm so sorry, Robert Chisana. I want to talk about, I represent 38 million people in California who are being defrauded in insurance claims every time they have an accident with the TNC. The whole thing about the TNC is stage one is private insurance. That's fraud. Stage two, well, you're on the books, but you're not many. And stage three is, well, if you have an accident, maybe Uber or Lyft will pay. There is only two ways, and it is your duty to decide. Either they go for this new insurance that has been offered by insurance companies specially tailored for TNCs, and it means they have it all the time, or they've got to have commercial insurance. And the thing that you've got to do with it, if you're going to let the TNC, if you're going to let the CPUC regulate, they must have a database of every single vehicle they are regulating so that they know if they're insured. They will know if somebody reports they haven't got any signage of them. None of those things. The PUC, and I have talked to them many times.
Wrap it up now, sir. Just one more.
I'm sorry. They only actually have 25 people in enforcement, and half of those are chair-bound. They actually have 12 people to control 150,000 TNCs.
Thank you.
My name is Wade Hudson. I drive taxi in San Francisco. And Mr. Chairman, I would like to commend you for repeatedly talking about the possibility of setting a cap on the number of TNCs. I think that's the single most important issue. San Francisco's #1 industry is tourism. We rely upon our drivers who provide transportation services to be ambassadors of tourism, to know the city, to be able to help passengers find what they want, and to provide service in an effective, safe manner. And under current conditions, drivers are forced to drive longer hours, getting more stressed out, and it endangers public safety. And the same applies to the TNC drivers, by the way. So I encourage you to delegate to the local governments the authority to limit the number of TNCs that can operate on their streets. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Osorio. I'm the administrator for the Taxi Workers Union, or Taxi Workers Alliance in San Francisco, and I'm also a manager at Union Cab. I'd like to offer you guys my copy of the taxi regulations from San Francisco. You can see it's 82 pages long, and if you'd like to have this to compare it with what you have for TNCs, you're welcome to it. And I just want to say, I talk to cab drivers all the time from all the different color schemes in San Francisco, and when these guys are talking about, businesses, their own CEO, these guys have been doing business and in San Francisco, and now that business is being taken away by an unregulated fleet that doesn't have to compete on the same level. That's all. Thank you.
No applause, please, if you can. Hold. We have lots of speakers to go through. We don't want to interrupt the.
Hi, my name is Peter Miller. I'm a San Francisco taxi driver. I think that for me, the two biggest issues, which I hope you consider, are limiting the numbers of TNCs on the street, along with, what's the other one? Public speaking here. Well, limiting numbers is one. Oh, and public control, or local control, I think is an important way to do it. And to support those arguments, I wanted to present to you a study which was actually done by Mr. Schaller. I didn't know that he was going to be here today. But in 2004, he did a study called Higher Pay, Safer Cabbies. And in it, there were 2 points that I gathered from this. One of them was that higher paid drivers are safer. And the other one was that full-time drivers seem to have less crashes than part-time ones. And so that to me suggests, since Uber and Lyft are both talking about how they have so many part-time drivers, taxis are inherently safer. And also, with so many TNCs on the road, that wages get depressed, it also creates an inherently unsafe work environment. So can I give this to?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take that from you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcel Porras. I'm Chief Sustainability Officer for the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. First off, I want to thank Chairman Zueso and Beal for convening this special hearing. Just to cut to the chase, I think there's two issues that the City of Los Angeles is interested in right now. I think one of them revolves around data. As the Department of Transportation, for us to make informed transportation mobility recommendations to our policymakers, I think it's important for us to understand the TNC landscape operating within our city and across our borders. And so one, it's looking at how we can share information, or the PUC could provide some of that data to the City of Los Angeles. And then also second is looking at the type of data, so working with the policy experts to make sure that the data is actually supporting us in making informed policy decisions. The second one is in regards to safety. There is interest in our city council to look at the issue of fingerprinting and looking at how we can do that like statewide. Currently, the City of Los Angeles does fingerprint taxi cabs and non-emergency vehicle drivers. So just looking at how there can be an across-the-board kind of standard on that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Robert Callan with the Internet Association. Thank you for today's hearing. We represent the world's, or the country's, leading internet companies, including Uber and Lyft and other members of the sharing economy. A couple of observations after today's hearing. Number one, we heard a couple of times that this surge in TNC vehicles is a bad thing for the state of California. I would argue the opposite. What no one's mentioned is the millions of California citizens and consumers who are benefiting as a direct result of that, for the ability to have new transportation options, choice, higher safety, dependable, convenience, all these things that TNCs are providing. And the fact is there's a reason consumers are moving rapidly to this option. We can't forget that. Let's not forget the drivers as well who are in those vehicles, who are being provided with greater flexibility and economic opportunity. I think the numbers about part-time work and full-time work while driving for Uber and Lyft is sort of indicative of the economy. We're helping people get by in an economy with lower wages, and perhaps this is helping supplement and make ends meet, so that's something to consider as well. The benefits extend to those who don't participate in the sharing economy as well. With greater income and transportation options, people are going to be visiting your local small businesses with extra cash in their pocket to go to the small business, movie theater, sporting events, et cetera. That leads to greater local tax revenues and greater income for these businesses. There's a lot of really great stats with reference to how many hours are being saved by Uber and Lyft riders, and just by using the service. And the final thing I'll say, in terms of leveling the playing field, a comment was made on a panel earlier that suggested instead of just putting the 85-page document and copy-pasting it onto TNCs, we should think about how taxis can be released of some of their older, outdated regulations so they can compete as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairs, Sarah Flocks, the California Labor Federation. We represent union drivers, whether they are taxi drivers, bus drivers, truck drivers, who work in highly regulated industries. I think it's appropriate that this is called, the title of this hearing is Ride-Hailing Disruption. But really, the only disruption that TNCs have made in the market is that they have managed to ignore, evade, and try to rewrite existing regulations that apply to other drivers and that other drivers and companies abide by. That's the disruption. And I think what needs to happen is that we need to take these regulations that exist and apply them to these companies where the only real difference is they're using a phone, which taxis use now, which other companies are moving towards as well. And not only so that these regulations are there to protect the public and to protect workers, but to fund our transportation infrastructure. I think it's interesting that Uber, which is a $60 billion company, has 120,000 drivers out there and is evading a $1,000 per driver fee. That's a significant amount of money that we could put into transportation infrastructure so that we could have a transportation system that serves all peoples of California, whether they're unbanked, have a smartphone, whatever mode of transportation they're using. So we would encourage raising the level of regulation rather than a race to the bottom.
Thank you very much.
Shane Gussman on behalf of the Teamsters and the Amalgamated Transit Union. We would share in the comments of Ms. Flocks. We think if you're going to provide an even playing field, the answer is really to bring the industries equal, bring the regulation of the TNCs up to all the other people who do the exact same thing, which is transport people. I think the second point is the response of the legislature and the response of regulators, in our view, is critical here, because other industries, not just transportation of persons, but parcel service, anything you could transport, anything you can use an app for to move workers into different fields of work, that's the future that these guys are seeing. And that's fine, but they should apply, they should have the same amount of regulation that the legislature and regulators have found that is good for protection of the public, protection for the environment, et cetera. We are very concerned about the precedent of lowering regulation in an industry to meet basically what is a business model of flaunting the law. And so we'd urge you to consider that as you move forward. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashwani Ari. I'm a San Francisco taxi workers driver. I'm a taxi worker driver. I want to say Uber and Lyft are talking about all the economic opportunities for drivers. I heard that some areas they are lowering charges like 30 cents a mile. Or even in San Francisco, they were saying we want to lower it to 50 cents a mile. I don't know how much money can you make. What kind of economic opportunity that's going to bring to a driver? I mean, minimum wage is like $10, $12 an hour. You can't even make any living with that. I think Uber and Lyft, all TNCs should be regulated at the city level. Seems like it's very hard to regulate since there are so many of them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is John Kabatek. I am here on behalf of the California Delivery Association, trade organization that serves the messenger, courier, and delivery industry in our state. And although there are a few larger companies in the organization and the industry, most of the businesses, it should be known, are small, independent, mom-and-pop, same-day delivery companies that serve our local communities. They deliver vital documents, blood, medical supplies, and important items door-to-door, business-to-business, same day. To be clear, the owners of these businesses and the organization are not anti-TNC. The business owners realize as times change that so must they and their business models. They know the onus is on them to bring the customer to the doorstep with best-in-class pricing and technology and quality customer service. And the majority of these companies are in fact doing that. They're using various online technologies and applications to make their businesses attractive and convenient for the customer. The greatest frustration they have is that these small business delivery companies, many of which have been family businesses serving our communities for 30, 40, 50 years or more, are required to comply with specific motorist regulations and requirements, while the TNCs are in fact, in many cases, not being subjected to the same level of enforcement and accountability. The current law requires delivery companies to possess a motor carrier permit through the DMV to move goods for hire. TNCs are not held to that same standard. Delivery companies must obtain adequate insurance to ensure that the general public is...
Please wrap up your comments.
Sure. Anyway, we'd hope that you as a committee and would consider policy that allows for reasonable insurance requirements for drivers in the transportation community, a better defined MCP, motor carrier permit, and greater accountability through background checks and fingerprinting. We look forward to working with you and others in the motorist community, and thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcelo Fonseca. Full-time driver, taxi driver in San Francisco for 27 years, serving on the board of directors, Yellow Cab Co-op. The app technology used by TNCs and the taxi industry is as identical as is the service we provide. And yet, the PUC used the app technology to exempt Uber and Lyft from having to comply with the rules and regulations of the taxi industry. If I could, very politely, I would ask the gentleman from Lyft and the speaker for Uber, please don't walk to that panel.
Sir, make your comments too.
And don't refer to your service as ride sharing. It is an on-demand, fee-based transportation that is taxi, and they should be regulated as such. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this hearing. My name is Tom Diesso. I've been a cab driver since 1975. I represent San Francisco Yellow Cab Co-op. I'm their vice president, and our co-op is proud to be a participant in the paratransit. We also have wheelchair accessible vans, and I want to address that one way to recognize these TNCs when they're on the road, have them have commercial plates so law enforcement can pick them out in a crowd. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank you who did stay for hearing me. My name is John Diesso, and I've been a San Francisco cab driver since 1977. What causes me the most concern is the flood of untrained and novice drivers currently operate with little or no control. This has established a renegade mentality where drivers for TLCs for hire, they disregard every regulation, and same thing with traffic regulations. They're whipping U-turns and illegal turns all over the place. This isn't the fault of the TNCs who have argued that they have no control over the quality of their drivers, but it is the responsibility of government agencies to ensure the public safety. By their own admission, TNCs say they have little, if no, power to ensure the quality of their drivers, the individual passenger carrier. That is why I and my fellow taxi drivers asked this committee to require licensing and training for all passengers carriers who work for TNC companies, regardless of how unregulated the companies themselves may be. The drivers who work for the TNCs must be held to state or city-enforced standards that ensure safety and reliability for the public at large.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Siddhartha Chattopadhyay. I represent Flywheel. We're a taxi technology company. I just, 2 points. One, we really think that TNCs should have a real-time meter. And this is really for consumer protection, right? No other transportation anywhere do you get in and not know how much you're paying either before the ride or during the ride, right? So there is this need as a customer that I want to get into a vehicle. I want to see how much I owe the driver halfway, 3/4 of the way, or if it's a prearranged ride, I want to know that, hey, look, before the ride, it's going to cost me actually $50 versus the $15 that I'm used to paying. So I think that is a real concern that we would like addressed. The second one is, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. There needs to be some form of capping on the number of vehicles. But more specifically, we think that there needs to be some sort of a fee that is levied in order to kind of contribute to the infrastructure and the cities in which these drivers are driving, the roads, all these kind of things. It is important that there is some contribution there as well.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Smith, San Francisco taxi cab driver and medallion holder and former president of Shuttle Pro Incorporated. So I have dealt extensively with both taxi regulations in San Francisco and CPUC regulation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with on-demand car service as long as it's properly licensed and insured. The innovation that Uber and Lyft or the TNCs claim to be providing is something that the taxi industry already has. It's not anything new. It's commonplace now. There should be no special rules for special people. I don't mind a fair fight, but I don't like fighting with one hand tied behind my back. I'm really shocked that the CPUC didn't even know that the TCP license, the very basic license for them, livery license, they didn't even know it renews every 3 years and it's $1,000. Shame on the PUC. I would also like to address Uber driver conditions, and I'm a taxi driver, but this is what's happening. Uber drivers are working under a heavily saturated market. They're working long hours, 15, 16, 17 hours. They're living in their cars, parking in Safeway parking lot at 16th and Potrero, showering at 24-Hour Fitness. They're also living in their cars next to Golden Gate Park.
Please wrap up your comments, sir.
Okay. There's no enforcement on on the new rideshare insurance. They lack workman's comp. There's an Uber driver who recently got into an accident and is paralyzed now. We also have to worry about rogue apps because there are apps that are not TNC licensed. Just to let you know real quick, there is an insurance gap. They work off the platform, and when they work off the platform, nobody's covering it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm David DePuma. I'm an insurance agent and a San Francisco taxi driver, and for both professions, I had to meet a set of regulations and requirements for licensing that were set in place to protect the consumer, and that should happen here. One area that needs to be addressed, I haven't heard addressed, is about the way that they set their fares. I was told by an Uber driver that what he and other drivers will do is go to an area of the city and deliberately remain logged out of the Uber driver platform, and open the customer platform and start to create a false sense of high demand, creating surge pricing. They'll log into the driver platform, get a ride, and get out of there. So, it's unfair pricing is what it is.
Thank you, sir.